What would you do if you were packed, your bags were by the door, and you got a text that simply said, "Don't come. You're not family"? This is the story of how a single message unraveled a lifetime of lies and the quiet, calculated revenge that gave me my life back. Before we dive into this story of betrayal and the most satisfying justice I've ever delivered, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This channel is built on stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your power. If that resonates with you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what you think of when you hear the word family. Now let's get into it. The suitcase was open on the bed, a dark blue shell waiting to be filled with possibilities. I was folding my favorite shirt, a soft, well-worn flannel that felt like comfort itself, when my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. I smiled, probably finalizing our meetup time at the airport. Our flight to Paris was in 6 hours. I could already taste the coffee and croissants, see the cobblestone streets Chloe had meticulously plotted on a map she'd sent me. But the text wasn't about gate numbers. Chloe, 12:04 p.m. Hey, Dad. Change of plans. Don't come to the airport. Mark thinks this trip should be just for immediate family. Sorry. The flannel shirt slipped from my fingers. I read the message once, then again. A third time, my brain stuttering over the words like a scratched record. Immediate family. The phrase echoed in the silent room, hollow and cruel. I was her father. I had planned this trip. I had booked the flights, researched the hotels, saved for a year to make it special. I was the one who taught her how to say bonjour. What did immediate family mean if not the man who raised her? I slowly sat on the edge of the bed, the half-packed suitcase a monument to my own naivety. My hands trembled as I typed out the only response I could muster. Me, 12:06 p.m. Okay. That single word felt like a surrender. The excitement that had been buzzing in my chest for weeks curdled into a cold, heavy lump of lead. I looked around my bedroom, at the travel-sized toiletries lined up on the dresser, the new guidebooks with their dog-eared pages, the brand-new camera still in its box. I methodically unpacked it all. Each item felt like a relic from a future that had just been canceled. The click of the suitcase latches sealing shut was the loudest sound in the house. I called the airline. The hold music was a cheerful, generic jazz tune that felt like a personal insult. The agent was politely sympathetic. "Sorry to hear your trip is canceled, Mr. Evans." I just nodded, though she couldn't see me. How could I explain that my world hadn't just changed plans? It had fundamentally shifted on its axis. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that has a sound all its own, a high-pitched ring in your ears. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost. That's when I made my first mistake. I opened social media, and there it was, a photo posted just minutes ago. My son-in-law, Mark's parents, Brenda and Frank, beaming in front of the Eiffel Tower. The caption from Brenda read, "Family vacation of a lifetime begins. #Paris. #blessed." My heart did a painful, lurching thing in my chest. Maybe it was an old photo, a cruel joke. I clicked on her profile. No, it was new. And then another photo popped up. This one showed the four of them, Brenda, Frank, Mark, and my daughter, Chloe. They were sitting at a cafe, glasses of wine raised, laughing at something just outside the frame. Chloe's caption stole the air from my lungs. "So grateful for this precious family time in the city of light." I counted the faces. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was their family. I was the extra, the afterthought, the bank account. I put the phone down, screen still glowing with their joy, and walked to the window. My reflection in the glass looked back at me, an old man with hollow eyes. Behind me, on the table, their happy faces shone, 4 people, and not a single space for me. The betrayal hit in waves, each one bringing a new, awful detail. I had paid for those flights, all 4 of them. They had told me Brenda and Frank were covering their own way. The lie was so casual, so easy for them. That night, I didn't sleep. I tossed and turned, a low hum of anger and hurt vibrating through me. Their smiling faces played on a loop behind my eyelids. By the time the gray light of dawn seeped into the room, I knew I couldn't let this stand. I needed to hear it from her. I called her later that day, when Paris would be waking up. The ringtone sounded foreign, expensive. On the 4th ring, she answered. "Hey, Dad!" Her voice was bright, airy. I could hear street noise, chatter, Mark laughing in the background about something. "I need to understand something," I said, bypassing any hello. "I saw the photos. Mark's parents are there." Silence. A long, telling pause. When she spoke again, her voice was tight, strained. "Dad, we can explain. You said the text said it was for immediate family. And what am I?" The question hung in the digital space between us. Her voice turned cold, formal. "Look, Mark feels you're difficult, exhausting. He didn't want the vacation to be stressful." Difficult, exhausting. The words were a physical blow. "I organized everything," I started, my voice cracking. Mark's parents paid their own way, and they don't require maintenance every second of the day." Maintenance. I was maintenance. I thought of all the times I'd helped them, supported them. "We never asked you to hold it over us," she snapped, irritation finally breaking through. In the background, Mark's laughter continued. He wasn't even listening. "Honestly, Dad, Mark is right. You're, a lot. You're overbearing." Overbearing. The phone felt like a brick in my hand. "I see," I said, my voice strangely calm. "We'll discuss this when you get back." I ended the call without saying goodbye. I placed the phone gently on the table, as if it were made of glass. Overbearing. The word rattled around in my skull. It wasn't just an insult. It felt like a diagnosis, a life sentence for the crime of caring too much. I walked into my home office, drawn by some deep-seated instinct. The walls were a timeline of my life with Chloe. Me teaching her to ride a bike, beaming next to her at her high school graduation, walking her down the aisle at her wedding, my chest swollen with a pride so fierce I thought it might break me. My hands clenched into fists. All these photos, these monuments to love, were now just evidence of my blindness. It wasn't love, it was utility, convenience. I was a financial donor with a fatherly label. In one frame, I held a toddler Chloe on my shoulders. We were both grinning. I looked at my reflection in the glass of the frame. Gray hair, weathered skin, but now with a new coldness in my eyes. I reached out and straightened the frame. A tiny, insignificant gesture, but it felt crucial, like I was finally straightening something out in myself, too. I sat there for a long time, surrounded by the proof of my own folly. The wedding I'd paid for, $30,000, because Mark's family couldn't afford to contribute much. Her college debts I'd quietly cleared when Mark was between jobs, the down payment on their house. I'd co-signed for their mortgage because the banks had turned them down. I dipped into my retirement fund, the money I'd scrimped and saved for my own old age. I was always the first call for a crisis, the last thought when it came to celebration. My Christmas gifts were opened last, like a formality. The picture was becoming horrifyingly clear. Why hadn't I seen it before? I wasn't a part of their family. I was their safety net, their ATM. A sudden sharp notification shook me from my thoughts. A bank alert. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another piece of spam. But something made me look. Transaction alert, $287.50. La Petite Maison, Paris, FR. 1:45 p.m. local time. Lunchtime in Paris. It was all there, laid out in stark financial detail. The hotel charges, the boutique purchases, the museum tickets, all on my credit card. The card I'd given Chloe years ago for emergencies, back when I still believed our relationship was built on trust. They were living it up on my dime after explicitly uninviting me. They lied. They said they were paying their own way. They said they didn't need my help. Every photo, every piece of furniture, every gift now looked like a piece of evidence in a trial I never knew was happening. And then a calm, clear thought cut through the noise in my head. This is my chance. I opened my banking app, went to the Managed Users section. There it was, Chloe Evans, full access. The permissions I'd set up out of love now looked like the key they'd used to lock me out of my own life. Another notification. Transaction alert, $855. Chanel, Paris, FR. She was spending $855 on a purse while I sat alone in my silent house, nursing a heart cracked down the middle. My finger hovered over the Remove User button. For decades, I had been the good father, the helper, the supporter. But one thing had become brutally obvious. There is a vast moral canyon between helping someone and being used by them. A dialog box appeared. Are you sure? This action cannot be undone. I selected yes. Access revoked. For the first time in years, I felt a surge of something powerful and unfamiliar. It was control. I was making a decision for myself. I put the phone down, slowly, calmly. In the dark reflection of my computer monitor, I saw my face, and for the first time in days, a real smile appeared. It was calm, a little tired, but it was genuine. The next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, actually enjoying it, when my phone rang. An international number. 9 a.m. here meant it was mid-afternoon in Paris. I let it ring 3 times, not out of doubt, but because I was no longer in a hurry to accommodate them. Good morning, Chloe, I said. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Dad, what did you do to the card? No hello, no how are you, straight to the demand. I revoked your access, I said, my voice flat. You can't do that. I tried to pay for lunch in front of Mark's parents. The card was declined 3 times. The waiter had to keep coming back. It was so humiliating. Unpleasant, I agreed, taking a sip of my coffee. It was more than unpleasant. You can't just cut us off like this. You told me you didn't need me to constantly fund your lives. How is this different? Silence, then muffled arguing in the background. When she came back on the line, her tone had changed. It was low, venomous. If you don't fix this right now, there will be consequences. What consequences? Mark and I have been talking. When we get back, we're going to have to make some decisions about your future. My future? You're getting older, Dad.
It's getting harder for you to manage on your own. We think a managed care facility would be the best solution for your own good." The coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. I slowly set it down. "And how do you plan to pay for that?"
"We'll sell your house. It's too big for you anyway." In the background, I heard Mark's voice. "Tell him it's for his own good." "Mark says it's for your own good," she parroted. I was silent for a long moment. The chess pieces in my mind clicked into their final, devastating positions. They weren't just users. They were predators. They were going to sell my home, the home I'd lived in for 30 years, and park me in some home because I'd stopped funding their European shopping spree. "Did you hear me?" she demanded. "Every word." "So you'll restore the access?" "No." "What?" she shrieked. "You can't do this." "I believe I just did," I said, and ended the call. I placed the phone face down on the table. My hands were steady, no tremor. I looked out the window at my neatly manicured lawn, the house I'd cared for over 3 decades. Everything was in my name. This was my house, not theirs. I stood up, a strange, calm certainty settling over me. I knew exactly what I had to do. I went to my office and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. I wasn't looking for the deeds to my own house. I was looking for a different set of documents. The ones for their house on Sycamore Lane. The one I'd bought for them 2 years ago. The deed had only one name on it, David Evans, mine. I remembered how they'd sweet-talked me. "Dad, we just need you to co-sign for the mortgage approval. We'll refinance it into our names in a few months, a year at the most." That was 2 years ago. They'd never bothered. Why would they? They had the house, and I was footing the bill. I found the business card I was looking for. Michael Ross, Realty Executives. He'd sold me both of my properties. A good man, discreet. 20 minutes later, I was parked outside his office. "David, good to see you," Michael said, standing up from his desk. "How's retirement?" "I need a quick, quiet sale. The Sycamore Lane property." His friendly expression sobered instantly. He understood the gravity. "The house for your daughter? Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine. It just needs to be sold, quickly. What's it worth?" He pulled up the data on his computer. "Market's hot. In that neighborhood, $850,000, maybe $900,000. You bought it for $650 if I recall." I nodded. "I want it listed fast." He pulled out the paperwork. Photos, listing, the works. "The house is empty?" "They're out of the country. I have the keys." He nodded, a professional understanding passing between us. "We'll be discreet." We discussed price, commission, timelines. I signed the agreement. My hand was steady. The signature was my own, but it felt like it belonged to a different man. The next morning, I was at their house on Sycamore Lane at 7:45 a.m. A moving truck was already there. The team leader, a burly, no-nonsense man named Vince, shook my hand with a firm grip. "Ready, Mr. Evans?" I nodded. "Produced the key." The house was quiet, empty in a way that felt fitting. We walked through the rooms. Vince assessed everything with an experienced eye. 3, maybe 4 hours, he estimated. "We'll take everything. Their things." "Everything," I confirmed. I worked alongside them. It was cathartic, this physical labor. I carried boxes labeled Chloe, books, and Mark, electronics. It was heavy work, but I felt lighter with every box. In a closet, I found their wedding album. I flipped through it. In most of the photos, I was nowhere to be seen. Mark's parents were in nearly every shot. I was in 3, always off to the side. I closed the book and handed it to Vince without a word. Room by room, we emptied their life. The sofa I had bought them for their first Christmas in the house. The dining table for their anniversary. The flat-screen TV I'd put on my credit card when Mark was between opportunities. In what was meant to be a nursery, I found a stack of credit card statements in a drawer. Mark's. Charges for high-end electronics, expensive dinners, designer stores. They'd been living large while telling me they were barely making ends meet. The final veil fell. By 11:30 a.m., the house was empty. The rooms echoed. Sunlight fell on bare walls where their photos had hung. I did one last walkthrough. Then I locked the door and put the key in my pocket. We drove to a storage facility. I watched as all their worldly possessions disappeared into Unit 4B. I paid Vince in cash, including a generous tip. "Good luck to you, Mr. Evans," he said, and his tone was genuinely warm. "Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it." On the drive home, my phone started to vibrate. Not once, but constantly. The storm had begun. I waited until I was home, parked in my own driveway before I looked. It was a barrage of notifications, texts, tags, comments. Chloe had already posted a furious, vague booking status. Some people have no respect for family boundaries. When someone who is supposed to love you betrays you, it cuts deeper than anything. The comments were a flood of sympathetic emojis and "what happened" messages. She was playing the victim beautifully. I closed the app. There was no point in looking. My phone rang. It was Michael Ross. "David, excellent news. We have a cash offer. A young couple just relocated. They love the area. They're offering $910,000. The number was more than I'd expected. "When do they want to close?" "They're motivated. Can we move quickly?" "Do it," I said. The papers were signed in a quiet office that Friday. The buyers, a couple named Jake and Sarah in their early 30s, looked at the house with the same hope and excitement Chloe and Mark once had. "It's perfect," Sarah said on the final walkthrough. "The garden is so peaceful." I just nodded. I hadn't landscaped it. They didn't need to know. The money hit my account. A clean, legal profit from my greatest investment in a lie. On Saturday, I drove by the house one more time. A moving truck was parked out front. Jake and Sarah were directing the movers, carrying parts of a crib up the walkway. A real family, the kind I'd once hoped would grow there. There was a warmth to the scene that had never existed when my daughter lived there. My phone rang, an international number. I answered. "Hello, Chloe?" Her voice was immediately shrill, panicked. "Dad, what is going on? Our taxi just pulled up to the house. There are strangers here. There are boxes everywhere." In the background, I could hear chaos. Chloe was yelling. Mark was demanding to know what these people were doing on his property. I parked my car down the street and walked toward the scene. Calmly. From my jacket pocket, I pulled a long, business-sized envelope. Chloe saw me first. Her face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally pure rage in the space of 3 seconds. "Dad, what is this? Who are these people?" "I don't understand," Mark was sputtering to Jake. "You're in the wrong place. This is our house." Jake, to his credit, remained calm. "I'm sorry, there must be a misunderstanding. We bought this house. It was registered yesterday. It's all official." "This is impossible," Chloe screamed. "This is our house." Sarah looked nervously between them, clutching a small garden trowel like a weapon. I stepped forward. My voice was steady, firm, cement. "There's no need for that. I can explain." I turned to Jake and Sarah. "I'm sorry for the confusion. Please continue unloading. Everything is fine. I turned to my daughter and son-in-law. The house was sold. It was mine to sell. It was never in your names. Mark blanched. What do you mean, yours? This is our house. Look at the documents you signed 2 years ago. You never bothered to refinance. I remain the sole owner. You had no right, Chloe shrieked. I had every right. I am the legal owner. Mark stepped forward, his face contorted with anger. This is theft. We'll sue you. With what money? I asked quietly. The money that no longer clears on my cards? Chloe was hyperventilating. Where all our things? I handed Mark the envelope. He snatched it and tore it open.
Secure storage. Unit 4B, he read, his voice hollow. Everything is there. The first month is paid. You emptied our house? Chloe cried. Everything is safe, carefully packed. You told me you didn't need my help. You were very clear. This is insanity, Mark yelled. You can't treat family like this. How does family treat a father? I asked. It was the simplest, most devastating question I could have asked. The hypocrisy hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. We're not done with this, Mark spat, taking a menacing step closer. I didn't flinch. We'll see you in court. The sale was legal. The house was mine. The deal is done. Chloe switched tactics, her voice adopting a pathetic, childish whine. Dad, how could you? This is me, your daughter. I looked at her for a long, long time. How could you? I replied, my voice soft but unwavering. Jake and Sarah had retreated inside their new home. Chloe and Mark were left standing on the curb, their suitcases at their feet. They looked like tourists who had been abandoned by their tour bus. I turned and walked back to my car, calmly, confidently. This isn't over, Mark shouted after me. I got in my car, started the ignition, and pulled away. The radio was playing the same soft classical station as always. No, Mark, I said to the empty car. It's over. I didn't drive straight home. I went to the lake, the one where my wife, Eleanor, and I used to picnic a lifetime ago. I sat on a bench with a thermos of coffee and just watched the water. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt resolved. I had done what needed to be done, not with hysterics, not with malice, but with fact. I had drawn a boundary. I had protected what was mine. The messages started a few hours later. From Mark, you're going to regret this. We're taking you to court. Delete. From Chloe, you've destroyed this family. I will never forgive you. Delete. I hired a lawyer to be safe. It's airtight, he told me. They have no legal standing. They can threaten all they want, but they can't do a thing. The local news station called. Chloe had taken her performance to social media. They wanted my side of the story. I declined. The segment aired anyway. Elderly father leaves family homeless. They showed old photos of the house, of Chloe and Mark on vacation, but not a single word about me being the owner, about the years of financial and emotional exploitation. It was a cheap theater for clicks and sympathy. I turned it off. The next day, I went to my lawyer again. I rewrote my will. I removed Chloe's name. Everything I had would now go to a local animal shelter and a veterans association. Are you sure? The lawyer asked. Absolutely, I said. Then I went to an RV dealership. What are you looking for? The salesman asked. A home on wheels, I said. I settled on a mid-size camper van, compact, self-sufficient, with a small kitchen, a bed, and even a shower. It had solar panels, a full tank, and minimal mileage. It was perfect for freedom. I bought it. I went home and packed a bag, just the essentials. Passport, documents, some clothes. I left a photo of Eleanor in the album. That's where she belonged. On the front door, I pinned a note. I am alive. I have not disappeared. I am simply free. Do not look for me. I gave my house keys to my neighbor, an old kind widow named Helen, who had always kept to herself. I'll be traveling, I told her. I opened a map. There was a spot up north by a vast, clear lake where Eleanor and I had once caught trout. I pointed my new home toward it. I've been on the road for a few months now. The legal threats have fizzled out. I heard through Helen that Mark and Chloe sold their share of my old apartment. It was still in my name, they had no claim, and moved to another state to live with his brother. It doesn't touch me. It feels like a story about someone else. I'm sitting by a lake as I record this. The mist is rising off the water. A gentle wind rustles the pine trees. My dog, a rescue mutt named Buddy, is chasing sticks along the shore. I'm 68 years old. I don't have a big house. I don't have a picture-perfect family. I don't have bank accounts with six-figure balances anymore. But I have silence. I have the open road, and I have peace. I remained true to myself. And finally, after a lifetime of giving myself away, that feels like enough. What's the most satisfying boundary you've ever had to set? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember to subscribe for more stories about finding the courage to choose yourself. Thanks for watching.